Alright, my people, roughly a month ago, social media erupted over reports that Cameroonian troops had entered Nigerian territory. As expected, online reactions exploded instantly. People declared it an invasion. Questions flooded the internet. Where is the Nigerian military? How could Cameroon go this far? Outrage spread rapidly, but very few paused to ask an important question. Those same Cameroonian soldiers had reportedly rescued nearly 300 Nigerian civilians who had been held captive by terrorists. So, what really happened? Was this an act of aggression, or was it a coordinated rescue mission that many people misunderstood? More importantly, who approved it? Under what legal framework was it allowed? Why were foreign troops operating inside Nigeria at all? Once you begin examining those questions, the story transforms into something much larger than Cameroon and Nigeria. It becomes a story about a new security model quietly taking shape across Africa. The answer may actually lie in a decision made years earlier in the Sahara by three nations that many observers largely ignored, and a blueprint that their neighbors are now quietly copying. Now, give me some few minutes, because the answer to what happened in Borno State was written 3 years ago in the Sahara Desert by three countries nobody was paying attention to. The Cameroon-Nigerian border stretched for approximately 2,000 kilometers. Armed groups crossing that territory do not see national boundaries. To them, it functions as a corridor extending from the Gulf of Guinea all the way to Lake Chad. That entire stretch cuts through communities that have been living in fear for years. Now, imagine a village sitting directly on the border. The market is on one side, the school is on the other side. Walk a few hundred meters east and you are suddenly in another country. Families remain connected, languages are shared, trade continues. For ordinary citizens, the border is almost invisible. But for extremist organizations like Boko Haram, that line has historically been a shield. Militaries were forced to stop at national boundaries, even when militants simply cross a short distance into neighboring territory. Consider this scenario: an armed group attacks a Nigerian community. Nigerian forces respond. The attackers retreat only a few hundred meters across the border into Cameroon. Immediately, they become unreachable, not because Nigerian troops lacked the capability to pursue them, but because international law prevented them from crossing. That structure gap, a colonial border design that was never built for this kind of threat, kept that escape route for over a decade, and the terrorists knew it, they used it. Thousands of civilians paid for it until someone decided to cross it. Now, I need you to travel north with me, deeper into the continent. In 2023, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger found themselves confronting similar challenges. Each nation had experienced military takeovers. Each had expelled French forces. Each was facing escalating jihadist violence that has persisted for years. International initiatives had consumed billions of dollars. Countless meetings had been organized and sophisticated strategies had been proposed. Yet insecurity continued spreading. These countries decided to change directions. Instead of waiting for outside solutions, they designed their own. That decision led to the creation of the Alliance of the Sahel States (AES). Unlike previous agreements, this was more than political symbolism. It was designed for implementation. The member states began building a unified forces composed of soldiers from all three nations, thousands of troops. A common headquarters in Niamey, shared intelligence systems, air capability, medical support units, a central command structure. Its guiding principle was straightforward. If militants move from Mali into Burkina Faso, pursue them. If they continue into Niger, continue to pursue. Borders remains visible on maps, but operationally, the conflict zone becomes one straight battlefield. The AES called this concept no safe haven. The lesson was clear. When African states treat border regions as a collective security space rather than isolated territories, armed groups lose their escape route. Cameroon and Nigeria face almost identical challenges. They shared a lengthy border, they confront the same extremist network, they experience the same pattern of attacks and cross-border movement. For years, insurgents exploited these divisions, strike in Nigeria, retreat into Cameroon, attacks in Cameroon, disappear into Nigeria, repeat endlessly. In June 2026, both governments signed a memorandum of understanding and defense cooperation in Yaoundé. The agreement established provisions for joint military operations, intelligence sharing, coordinated responses, logical assistance, legal mechanism from cross-border pursuit. Especially, Cameroon and Nigeria adapted that central logic pioneered by the AES. That is the context behind the operation in Borno State. Cameroonian troops were not acting as invaders. They were operating within a legal framework endorsed by both governments. An incident that sparked outrage online had actually been authorized, coordinated, and planned. Cameroon and Nigeria present a somewhat different case. Their cooperation excludes foreign military actors. Instead, it builds upon decades of institutional relationships, including the Cameroon-Nigerian Peace Commission. In many respects, this partnership may represent a refined version of the idea first demonstrated by the AES. And the threat does not end there. Cameroon also maintains security cooperation with the Central African Republic. The principle remains the same: neighboring states working together against a threat. Interestingly, governments involved in this initiative have not widely publicized operation details. In warfare, surprise remains a critical advantage. Revealing strategies publicly can unintentionally benefit adversaries. Looking at a map, a border pattern begins to emerge. The AES covers much of the Sahel. Cameroon Nigeria represents a significant security partnership linking West and Central Africa. Cameroon Central African Republic extends cooperation eastward. This raises an important question: could Africa eventually develop a broader regional security architect designed by Africans, funded by Africans, and focused solely on solving African security challenges? Perhaps. These are undeniable obstacles. Historical tensions remains, national sovereignty remains highly sensitive, yet African governments increasingly appear willing to rethink traditional security boundaries. Security threats do not stop at borders. Effective solutions may also need to move beyond them. One overlooked aspect of this conversation is the impact on ordinary people. When insecurity declines, commerce returns, markets reopen, farmers reclaim abandoned land, families reconnect, cross-border communities begin to thrive again. Many communities along the Cameroon-Nigerian frontier have operated far below their economic potential because conflict dominated everyday life. Closing the gaps exploited by armed groups is not merely a military achievement, it is also an economic and social revival. Now, let me come back to where we started. 300 civilians free in a coordinated operation by soldiers from two countries that once had one of the most contested border disputes in African history. Bakassi remained an important reminder of that history. A disagreement significant enough to reach the International Court of Justice is now being replaced by cooperation designed to protect civilians living on that border. Of course, one agreement will not eliminate insurgency overnight, neither will several thousands troops instantly stabilize an entire region. These challenges have evolved over decades. They require patience, strategy, and persistence, but the direction appears meaningful. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect is where the momentum began. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, people didn't even want to hear about them. They were the ones who started this blueprint that is going to save other countries across Africa. The AES did what they did, and their neighbors watched and started building their own version. You see, there's a proverb which simply means unity creates strength, division creates vulnerability. These armies aren't quoting that proverb in the conference room, they are applying it on the field. So here is what I want you to sit with, and I'm asking because I really actually want you to know what you think about this. Is bilateral cooperation about neighbors the Cameroon-Nigerian model enough to build lasting security, or does it eventually need to become something more structured and permanent to hold? So the brilliant idea that you bring together will help shape the future of Africa. African security. If this video changed the way you see the headlines, the one that call it an invasion, share it with someone who needs it to see it. My people, what do you think about all of this? Whatever you feel about this, put it in the comment section, and thank you for watching this channel. Peace.